Hello and welcome. Today we're in the upcoming Tier 7 Italian cruiser, Zara. She's still a work in progress, meaning that she is subject to change, and I still hope that she gets some kind of buffs because she just doesn't feel good enough. If you're interested in me going over the stats, it's around the 15-minute mark in the video, where I'll show her in port. But the reason I don't really like Zara much is because of the same reason I don't like any of the other tier 5 to 8 Italian cruisers, and that is they don't have HE, and their SAP in my opinion simply is not good enough to make up for the lack of HE. The AP isn't good enough either. Now, one of their strengths is the fuel smoke, which I'm using right now, which is really useful because it can get you out of failures quite easily, and you can actually plan around playing this. The problem is that the ship just doesn't have the firepower to, in my opinion, feel good. You also don't have utility functions like defensive fire or hydro or radar, so you don't bring that to the table either. And while she does have torpedoes, they are 12 kilometers, which is quite nice, so you are actually able to use these torpedoes. They're only 51 knots, meaning they're very slow. Their concealment is pretty decent though. They don't deal much damage, but you know, random torpedoes can suddenly appear out of nowhere and be surprising to people, which is why I kinda like these torpedoes. But I mentioned that I find the firepower of these ships to be lacking, and I suppose I have to explain how SAP works if you don't know yet. Oh, I actually hit the torpedo on a destroyer. That's very nice. Anyway, the way SAP works is that you should think of it like AP with lower penetration value, and it cannot citadel or over-penetrate. That's basically it. Or at least that's what YouTube comments suggested. And this means that SAP, you can still angle against this, meaning that if a ship is sailing directly at you, you will not deal that much damage with SAP. It's basically meant for lightly armored armor plates that aren't angled against you. And in those cases SAP does decent damage, but you still have to keep in mind that it only does slightly more damage than AP, and it cannot citadel, meaning that you're always dealing 1/3 of the damage, or dealing no damage at all when it hits a thicker plate, or it ricochets. And the end result is that it just doesn't feel good enough. For example, take the Zara. The Zara has around 167k SAP DPM. Sounds fine, right? Well, but then you have to consider that the Abruzzi, which is another tier 7 Italian cruiser, the premium one that's already out, the one that has HE, has 168k HE DPM. Sure, you have to take IFHE to be able to penetrate 32mm of armor, for example, but you won't care about angles, and you can start fires. Meaning that I think the Duca or the Abruzzi is superior in, well, almost every way. About the only thing the Abruzzi doesn't have that Zara has is the amazing smokescreen, which is actually a big thing, but I don't think it's worth the trade-offs though, because Abruzzi is actually faster than Zara, because for some reason Zara is actually, I think, the slowest of the Italian cruises, at least the above tier 5 ones. Most of the Italian cruises are like 36 plus knots. This one actually is only like 33.6, which is a disappointment because the name Zara, I think, would be really popular among players due to certain WIP things, or I suppose Chinese things. Anyway, it would be popular, but I think if the ship isn't as powerful as almost any of the other ships you could play at this tier, well, I think that it's just not going to work out. So, right now, the plan is to just keep sailing in circles here, and maybe we can hit the Edinburgh again and try to sink her. I also don't want to be too far away because maybe the Friedrich der Grosse will get some bad ideas and take shots at me. And the annoying thing would also be that I get spotted by DDs. Oh, another thing that Zara isn't great at is that her concealment is 12.2 kilometers. This is with the concealment expert commander skill. Compare this to like 10 kilometers of the Abruzzi. That's 2 kilometers worse. There are quite a few battleships you'll run into that have the same or even potentially better concealment than this cruiser. And the armor just doesn't make it worth it, in my opinion. And here you can see the downside of the fuel smoke. Because, well, unfortunately, you still can't be spotted in your smoke screen when firing. And so, while I used my smoke screen, I am still visible to all of the enemies because my concealed or smoke screen detection firing range is like 8.7 kilometers. And so I have to actually try to disengage. Which means that the smoke screen was kind of wasted. And the thing is that here actually it's not that bad, because the target I'm firing at isn't spotted by me anyway. But if I were the one spotting the target, and I use the smoke screen, the enemy can actually disappear for me while I'll still be spotted. And that can be quite a huge disadvantage, so you have to be very careful when using this fuel smoke screen. Anyway, we should be able to deal... Oh yeah, we're definitely going to be able to deal with this Edinburgh. I do want to put some distance between me and the potential Friedrich der Grosse, because I really don't want to take many shots at this point, since I only have 11k HP. Now, one thing Zara has is that she only has 8 guns, so you might think that, you know, she actually has significantly less damage output than, for example, the tier 8 Amalfi, but that's actually not true, because Zara, for some reason, actually gets a better reload. It's still not great, it's 14.5 seconds, I think, but at least it's something. But I honestly feel that it's still not enough. I think Zara should have something like 220k SAP DPM, maybe then it'll work out. And the other Italian cruisers should kinda follow suit, because if there are many ships at the same tier that can deal the same amount of damage with HE as you can with SAP, then what's the point of having SAP? It's not gonna give you much of an advantage. The only advantage you get is that the shells are faster. Oh, speaking of that, Abruzzi's shell characteristics should still be better than Zara's, even though she has HE. Like, what? What's the point of this SAP then? It really makes one wonder, because it really feels like a downside rather than an upside. I mean, you can see the damage ideal. It's nothing exceptional, is it? I've been shooting for quite a while now as a heavy cruiser, and the damage I've been dealing is not great. Sure, I get it. We're talking about higher armored targets, but I'm not exactly firing at the armor plates. I'm firing at the superstructure because that's basically the only thing I can deal damage to. Keep in mind though that this Friedrich der Grosse is showing me her broadside the entire time. This isn't something you get in every game. Most games, in fact, ships just angle towards you, and then you're like, well, I guess I don't do anything this game. In fact, I have another video that I hopefully put out at the same time as this video, where you'll see exactly that in the Zara, where I just can't do anything to, or well, he'll do very little to a bunch of ships. Anyway, this Friedrich der Grosse is eventually going to sink, and we will take this A cap, and we held the B and D caps, so we should be well on our way to winning this game. I definitely don't want to go pick a fight with the Friesland, because I actually think I would lose in a straight up gun battle. That's because I only have 12k HP. Although I suppose even if I had double that, I still would think that I could potentially lose the fight. So the idea is to try to go to the other side of the map, maybe try to find that York or Seattle to fight, because they are lightly armored, so I should be able to deal some more damage. I still have a fuel smoke, which is very nice, but I still have to keep in mind that I need to stay far away enough so I don't get spotted inside the smoke. The range on the ship is actually pretty decent though, 16.1 kilometers. that's good, and the shell characteristics themselves also feel decent enough. They're not the best, as mentioned, the Abruzzi's are better, but they're good enough. Better than many other cruisers at this tier, so you can actually leverage range much better than, say, I don't know, the American cruisers, for example. Okay, Friedrich der Grosse is out. I may be able to get a shot. Maybe I can even sink a ship. Come on, RNGesus, please. No. 1 non-penetration and 1 ricochet. I suppose that's the story of the ship's life, huh? Destroyers are good targets though, because they take a lot of damage from SAP, if you hit, of course. Because you're essentially getting a penetrating hit from a battleship, or from an AP shell. That is, SAP shells just hit so much harder than HE shells, that's why it feels so different. I'm gonna try to keep my distance, because again, I don't have the survivability to survive for long. Zara doesn't have amazing armor, and she also doesn't have a heal, and I don't have much HP left. Her HP pool though is fairly good. This is with survivability expert though, so it's not that much better than, say, Belfast, for example. Okay, there's a York pushing. Maybe I can actually deal with the York. That would be quite nice. But until then, we can take some shots at the Seattle. Considering how far away I am, I think it's unlikely Seattle will return fire, or at least, if she does, she's probably not going to hit me. Or at least, if she does hit me, not for much damage. I launched the plane so I can spot the York for my teammates, and know that nobody will suddenly surprise me. Man, this Dallas does not seem, or Seattle does not seem to wish to take damage, which annoys me because I would like to deal damage. Let's try SAP, maybe it'll work better. I was hoping for some Citadel hits, but that seems like something I'm not getting. You know, the one upside though of playing these Italian cruises has been that I really like Italian, apparently. It sounds nice. The language. That was a nice salvo on the Seattle, but I don't think we're gonna get many repeats of that. I mean, here you can see I fired a similar salvo, did like half of the damage I did last time. But I should be able to sink her. Come on, we can do it. We can break 100k damage this game. Yes! Well, actually I still need 4k more. But there's still lots of points to gain for us, and I think this Izumo will happily give me some of her HP pool from that superstructure. Or even the deck armor, Actually, I don't know if I can pen the deck armor. Maybe. Okay, that was only 1600 damage, but I'm sure we can do better next time. But at this point, you know, I really would like to be able to set fires on those battleships. I think it would have made the game much better for me. Come on! Maybe I should switch to the St. Louis. Oh, yes! 6k damage! Yes, I did damage. Although I think a lot of that damage came from the fact that I actually hit 6 shells out of 8. 5k. Pretty good. Although I think the Izumo is looking at me now, or was for a moment anyway. But unfortunately now she's angling, so I can't actually do anything to that battleship. As you can see, 1 pen, 2 non-penetration, and 3 ricochets with SAP. We're gonna take a shot on the St. Louis instead. Although she only has 2k HP, at least it'll be something. And unfortunately there goes my ship. And I was unable to do anything to the St. Louis either, 4 non-penetrations and 1 ricochet. But here's the game. At least I did 110k damage this time in the Zara, so I'm happy with that result. However, I think that Zara needs some quite significant improvements. I really would like to see what the Italian cruisers end up as. I did get a nice almost 2500 base XP. That's because I fought tier 9 ships as a tier 7 ship, but still though, it didn't feel nice because I just... Look at the damage. 88 SAP shell hits, 62k damage. 41 AP shell hits, and it was, what is that, 36k? 19 non-penetrations, 22 ricochets, out of 128 hits. I mean, that's a third of the shells dealing 0 damage. Of course, some of them were AP shells, but I mean, even from this, AP seems better, but you have to keep in mind that I actually hit some citadels with AP, so they're probably about the same. So yeah, I would like to see improvements to the Zara and essentially all the other mid-tier Italian cruises. Venezia felt fine, but all the other ones have felt pretty terrible to me. So let's take a quick look at the Zara in port. She looks nice, not as nice as Amalfi. I think Amalfi, in my opinion, looks better. First, captain skills, as usual, it's the same as Amalfi, so priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, concealment expert, expert marksman, then I figured, hey, survivability expert, and radio location. In terms of upgrades, it's also basically the same. Rudder shift, here I went with anti-air and damage control and main arms modification. She also has a standard cruiser damage control party, the fuel smoke, and then a choice between a fighter and a spotting aircraft. Now let's take a look at the ship armor layout. It's pretty standard, 16mm at the bow, stern, middle is 19 I believe, and deck as well, and an open citadel with a 150mm plate, which means that this ship is very easy for battleships to deal lots of damage to. Stats wise, 39,550 HP, which is actually pretty good, but this is with survivability expert. Then her firepower is lacking. It's about the same as Amalfi actually in terms of DPM, so that's actually fairly nice for a tier 7 cruiser, but it's still lacking. Abruzzi is basically better in almost every way. Torpedoes are the same, 51 knots, 12 kilometers. Anti-air is mediocre as usual. Maneuverability wise, she's very maneuverable, more than the Amalfi, but her speed is slow, 33.6 knots, which is a lot slower than other Italian cruisers. And her concealment at 12.2 kilometers is also terrible. Which is why Zara unfortunately is a disappointing type ship. I much prefer the Abruzzi. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to thank the patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for your continued support, Pointy Haired Jedi, and I hope I'll see you guys next time.